Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. The AI compute supply chain is, well, it's fundamentally stressed. NVIDIA's CEO is warning that demand is surging 10,000 times faster than what they can build. We're also seeing tech titans like Sergey Brin prove that for some people, retirement is the worst possible plan. And the age of true unsupervised autonomy. It's here. Tesla robotaxis are now on the streets of Austin with no safety driver. Okay, so let's unpack all of this. We're diving deep into the raw newswire, synthesizing the biggest moves across markets, tech, and, the cultural zeitgeist. The mission today is to really get at the core conflict defining everything right now. This tension between exponential demand for tech and the very finite, very physical resources we have. Let's jump straight in with the high-stakes story, and that is the compute crisis. This comes straight from the top. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, he basically laid out this staggering gap. He's saying, look, performance is improving by maybe 10 times each year, which is already incredible. But the demand is surging by a factor of 10,000, maybe even 1,000,000 times. It's just a supply chain that cannot possibly keep up.
Right. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the second order effect, the real bottleneck, it's not silicon anymore. It's infrastructure strain. It's power.
So it's not about the chips. It's about plugging them in.
Exactly. Huang has warned about this before. He said energy shortages are the greatest threat to the AI revolution, not chip availability. And, the IEA projections back this up completely. AI data centers could eat up to 1,000 terawatt hours globally by 2026.
1,000 terawatt hours that's just a huge number.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for people listening?
It means we're building an AI infrastructure that, in just 2 years, is going to need the same amount of energy as, say, the entire country of Japan uses in a year.
The whole country.
The entire country. So the big question for investors, for anyone in this space, is this sustainable? Or are we just trading a chip shortage for, systemic power grid failures? We're already seeing states and utilities across the U.S. hit the brakes on new data centers because the grid just can't handle it. The bottleneck has shifted from GPUs to watts.
And that exponential human appetite for building things, for more output, it doesn't seem to care about the energy bill, which I think brings us perfectly to the psychology of the people building these systems.
Yeah.
We've got this fascinating story about Google co-founder Sergey Brin.
Mm-hmm.
He's worth over $140 billion, and he retired in early 2020. His plan was, the dream retirement.
Yeah.
Sit in cafes, drink coffee, read physics books all day.
Sounds pretty good.
Right. But he called it his worst decision. He said once COVID hit and the cafes closed, he started spiraling. So he came back. He's back in the office daily, working on Google's Gemini AI team.
And what's so insightful here is that the money was never the point. It was the challenge. For a mind like that, happiness isn't passive leisure. It's sustained, complex problem solving. It's the friction of building something that's rewarding.
So he didn't need a break. He needed a bigger problem.
Yeah, precisely. The research totally supports this. For these super high-achieving people, well-being is tied to purpose-driven work, work that requires deep technical engagement. So for that small group of people, leisure is a void. Complexity is the goal.
Okay. Moving from the minds building the models to the actual tech hitting the streets and the skies. Let's get into autonomy. This is where we are seeing some major friction points. First up, personal flight. It's becoming shockingly accessible.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Jetson 1 personal eVTOL vehicle. It costs $128,000. And the real hook here is the regulatory side of it. It qualifies as an FAA ultralight.
Which means you don't need a pilot's license. You just do a quick, 5-day training course and you're good to go.
Exactly. You can go over 100 kilometers an hour, has redundant batteries, and this is key, a whole aircraft ballistic parachute. So personal flight is here. What's the immediate problem?
The problem is that the tech is just moving way faster than the governance. The whole appeal is that it's easy to get into, right?
Yeah.
It makes the personal helicopter a reality. But how quickly can infrastructure catch up? You need landing zones, you need airspace control, noise ordinances. This thing was $92,000 2 years ago. As that price drops, adoption goes up, and the headaches for air traffic control, they multiply like crazy.
That friction, tech outpacing regulation, it's also happening on the ground, maybe even faster. This is bringing driverless cars to us way sooner than we thought. Tesla robotaxis are now driving completely unsupervised in Austin, Texas. There's no safety monitor in the car. This is Elon Musk making good on his promise for true driverless testing.
And this is a huge shift. We're going from a supervised beta to a potential commercial service, and that requires just a massive amount of trust. It's a really aggressive rollout, especially when you contrast it with Waymo's approach.
Which is much slower.
Much slower, much more measured. Waymo is focusing on these controlled expansions, tackling really hard problems like high-speed highway driving at night. And if you look at their data, they've driven 71 million autonomous miles. They report 85% fewer injury-causing crashes than human drivers. That's a huge safety lead.
I get that, but doesn't Waymo's cautious approach just leave the door wide open for Tesla? I mean, maybe the only way to really stress test the system to find all the edge cases is to just push it out there and collect massive amounts of real-world data. Maybe aggression is the only way forward.
Well, that's the core tension of the whole industry, isn't it? Safety first or scale first. Tesla might claim the leadership position by being aggressive, but if there's one major, very public incident, it could trigger a regulatory backlash that sets back the entire sector, including Waymo. It's a huge gamble.
Speaking of performance, let's do a quick reality check on the hardware that's powering all of this. There's this funny but painful point being made about unified memory architecture, or UMA. You see it in things like Apple Silicon. So for anyone listening, UMA is basically where your CPU, running all your Chrome tabs, is fighting for the same RAM as your GPU, which is trying to run a complex machine learning model.
And while it's great for efficiency, it's cooler, it's a smaller package, it creates this workflow friction. Benchmarks show that when you run those mixed loads, you can see throughput drop by up to 30%. Your AI is literally fighting your web browser for memory. It's a classic trade-off.
Efficiency versus resilience.
Always.
And that insight is the perfect bridge to global economics, where that same trade-off basically defines national strategy.
So let's look at the factory floor, specifically China's incredible manufacturing scale. We're seeing how effective their hyper-specialized city clusters are. You have entire cities like Sixi that just make hairdryers, or Wenzhou for lighters.
Okay, let's unpack the power of that model. These self-reinforcing ecosystems, they have all the suppliers, all the specialized labor, all in one place. It's been proven to cut manufacturing costs by like 20 to 40%. That efficiency is what's behind China's 28% share of all global manufacturing.
But the downside is massive geopolitical risk. In a world that's getting more and more fragmented, that hyper-specialization creates a single point of failure. One problem in one region can freeze global commerce.
And there's this contrasting view of intentional specialization, the American model, pointing to something like Anduril's new facility near Columbus.
Exactly. That factory is designed to produce thousands of autonomous drones a year. It's not specializing for global cost reduction. It's specializing for national defense, for resilience. One system optimizes for cheapness, the other optimizes for security.
And if you compare that kind of industrial strategy to the ultimate operating cost of traditional military power, get this. Running a single U.S. aircraft carrier costs between $6 and $8 million per day.
Per day. It's an almost incomprehensible number. That covers salaries for over 5,000 crew, jet fuel for 100-plus flights a day, the nuclear reactor upkeep. It's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year commitment for one ship.
So here's the value debate. That massive daily cost buys you naval power projection. It reinforces global stability. But is the economic weapon of making the world dependent on your hyper-efficient manufacturing more effective in the long run?
It's the essential debate of the century, economic gravity versus hard power projection. China has leveraged specialization to make itself indispensable, while the U.S. relies on very expensive hard power to enforce the rules of global trade. They're two sides of the same coin.
That is a fundamental tension. Okay, let's wrap our deep dive with a focused vibe check on some cultural threads, looking at history and where we are now. We have to mark this date, December 14th, 1972. That was the day Apollo 17 lifted off from the moon, the last time humans were there. The footage is just stunning.
And that whole era, it represents this high watermark of collective ambition, right? And the reason we didn't go back for decades is a harsh lesson in politics. NASA's funding dropped from 4% of the federal budget down to just 0.5% by 1975. Ambition runs on money and political will.
And speaking of ambition and priorities, Carl Sagan's 1987 critique of the media is making the rounds again, and it's really resonating. He argued that TV executives just thought their audiences were too stupid for science.
And today's data proves him right. A 2023 Pew Research analysis shows that stories promoting pseudoscience now outnumber real, verified science reports 3-to-1 in major outlets. We are prioritizing, simple, beautiful visuals over the deep, hard understanding you need to tackle something like that 1,000 terawatt-hour energy crisis we started with.
Which brings us right back to the builders. Let's circle back to the founder mentality. If the system is optimized for easy content, founders need to focus on the one thing that truly cuts through the product. The old advice about networking is being replaced by hard data.
Yeah, the data is clear. Founders who prioritize building a compelling product, like Blake Scholl at Boom Supersonic, they raise funding 2.5 times faster than the ones who just go to conferences. The product is the best form of networking. It's the output that matters, which, connects perfectly back to Sergey Brin.
And finally, as we're trying to synthesize all these different data points, energy, AI, cars, we have to be aware of our own filters. There's this beautiful animation visualizing perceptual bias.
Right. It shows how when we have incomplete observations, we just substitute what's missing with pieces of ourselves. And that's an essential lesson for anyone trying to process a raw news feed. You have to recognize the biases you're applying.
We've covered a staggering amount of ground. The AI economy is defined by exponential demand and a coming energy crunch. Autonomous mobility is accelerating past its regulatory boundaries. Global power is being reevaluated.
Given that extreme compute demand from NVIDIA and the grid strain we're already seeing, I think the market focus shifts irrevocably. It moves from chip supply to power generation. Our prediction for tomorrow is this. The next big market movers won't be hardware companies. They will be the companies announcing huge capital commitments for new, dedicated energy sources.
So, micronuclear reactors, dedicated solar farms.
Whatever it takes. New grid tech required solely to feed the insatiable appetite of AI data centers. That is the next great bottleneck for all global capital.
We've processed the vibe. Thank you for diving deep with us.
That's the daily vibe casting.